Good morning, and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us on Facebook today, thank you so much for uh, giving us your attention. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and in honor of Mother's Day, today we're discussing motherhood and money. We have quite an array of guests today, and I can't wait to get into it. Today, our guests are Tonni Brodber, Racquel Moses, and Kathleen Galy. So, Tonni is the representative of the UN Women Multicultural. Oh, let me start again. Sorry. Tonni is the representative of the UN Women Multicultural Country Office in the Caribbean to know what's happening today. Racquel is the CEO of Climate-Smart Accelerator, and Kathleen is the acting managing director at ANSA Bank. So we're gonna welcome these women. Maybe I'm intimidated today because my words are just like all over the place. But we have quite a strength of women today, and I want each one of them to briefly introduce themselves. So we're gonna start with Kathleen. Can you give us a little insight into you and share a bit about your family and career journey?
Thanks, Pauline. Hi, my name is Kathleen Galy. I'm the Managing Director for ANSA Bank. I have two beautiful kids, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I've spent about most of my career, 21 years here at ANSA McCall, mostly in the financial services sector. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And we're really going to count on that financial experience because we have a lot of questions about money, and usually the comment section has a few. So, Racquel, can you give us a brief introduction as well, please?
Sure. My name is Racquel Moses. I'm the CEO of the Caribbean Climate-Smart Accelerator. We work on all things to support the Caribbean in closing its gap between our climate ambitions and where we'd like to be. I have two beautiful daughters, and they're 23 years apart. I'll say that. My older daughter doesn't like me to share how old she is, so but that's quite a gap. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Racquel. And Tonni, let's just round it up and give us a brief introduction on your end.
Sure. My name is Tonni Brodber. I am a daughter of, I'm lucky, a blended family, two amazing fathers who have since passed. My stepmother's still here, and my mother, Rosina's daughter. I am a wife to Kashka, and I am the mother of two lovely little boys, 6 and 4. And I happen to also work at UN Women, where I'm the representative for the multi-country office. It's a mouthful, so don't stress yourself.
That's okay. I'm here to learn on all accounts. So thank you so much for that. I want to delve right into it because a lot of people think 60 minutes is a lot, but when it comes to money, it affects us all. So, as someone who does not have any kids, I want to talk about the financial impact. What was the thought process? What did that look like? Saying, hey, I'm about to take this journey and it's going to affect, because like I have a lot of friends who don't have kids, and we kind of joking like, oh, we wouldn't be able to take these trips last minute like our friends because they have kids, they have to make these plans. So give us a little insight of what that thought process was like when you're like, oh wait, there's a tiny human coming. Who wants to take it first?
I'm
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go.
All right, so I'm happy to take it. The reason I'm in climate is because of that financial decision, right? When I was having my second daughter, we were thinking about, oh, what do we do? How do we prepare for college? How much money do we need to put away? What's college going to cost at that time? And as we were thinking through that process, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report about climate change that said that we had 12 years left. And I looked at my husband and I said, listen, and at the time I was head of Microsoft for Trinidad. I said, listen, if I'm not working on this climate change issue, I can't sleep. We brought this child, or we're bringing this child into this world, and we're talking about something that's going to happen in 18 years. And in 12 years, we may be looking down the barrel of a climate crisis that we can't solve. So it changes your focus having children. And as much as it is expensive, I won't lie to anybody and suggest that it isn't. It definitely focuses your attention on what is most important, and then it helps you to make great financial decisions.
Such an interesting perspective, Raquel, from the climate change perspective, because that wasn't even my purview, but that makes so much sense. And thanks for sharing that information. So, Kathleen, I know you wanted to jump in on that. You want to add to the conversation?
I'm going to change my answer since her own was so profound. I, I had my first child quite young, so I don't think I thought about the financial impact of it. We just got excited that we were expecting, and thankfully, I had 9 months to prepare, right? The fact of the matter is, children are expensive, raising them are expensive, and what your priorities are shifts as they shift. For me, I think the thing that struck me the most is I told my mother maybe when my second was born. So money started private primary school, and Pampers and formula and everything else. I said, you never told me that we don't exist once we have kids. So it's about making choices. Parents naturally deprioritize themselves and they put their money to where it matters most, which is their children. You live your life through them.
And it's quite a sacrifice for you guys to make. So thank you so much for all the mothers out there, mine including. So I want to bring in Tonni onto the conversation as it relates to, obviously being a mother as well as being part of UN Women Multi-Country Office. What about budgeting? How did that affect you, and how do you see that in your role as well affecting women?
So my journey is similar. I wasn't young. I was older when I had my children, and even then I did not fully comprehend the financial impact that having children would have on my life. I had a lot of, dual income, no kids opportunities before. And since having children, and we had ours relatively close, they're 6 and 4, we try to meet every month and do a family budget. At the end of the year, we have a session, we call it a boardroom, and we sit down and we think what are our goals, not only for the upcoming year, but in the long term, and how we're going to achieve them, both in terms of our time and our budget. So the monthly meetings are just checking to make sure we're on track, ensuring that the children's long-term goals are accounted for in terms of planning for their college if they choose to go to university and college, planning for their extracurricular activities, etc. So we do our best that way with budgeting, but it was not something that I thought about practically until I was in the midst of it.
So I like that perspective of sitting down and having that conversation, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have those conversations with my parents, and I don't think it's due to any lack of them wanting to. I don't think they've ever experienced it. And for those who are watching this and might be thinking, well, I don't know how to start a budget, I don't know how to have this conversation. I'm going to direct this question at Kathleen. What advice do you have to those mothers? Because it's a lot of overwhelming behavior in terms of actions and requirements as a mother, and sometimes even further, you are being a single mother. No one's thinking that I have the time to sit down and have this conversation. What advice would you give to that person?
So for me, I'm not going to differentiate between a single income and a double income household. Budgeting means putting your life into your own realm, right? So the 50-30-20 rule is something I always live by. 50% of your income goes to your needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings. And if you're very disciplined about it, like Tonni, I had a friend that used to put all their bills in a jar. She'd sit at the end of the month and actually take out a pen and paper and start categorizing each one. If you're a pen and paper person, it works well, because actually visualizing where you're bleeding, where you're spending your money, helps you pull it back and be more mindful before you continue to make those impulsive purchases. For those of you who are not as organized, there are tons of apps out there. So I use something called Simply Wise Receipt. Everything I do, everything I purchase, I just scan the receipt, and it actually categorizes where the item, what category it should go into, and spits out a report for you at the end of the month. And we sit down together, my husband and I, and we actually look at it and make the adjustments based on what we're seeing. One of the other really key things is I've always automated my savings. Very early in my career, I got like a $700 increase. I'm making up the number. I don't remember what it was. But I was comfortable. I was living on what I was making. I really did not have a necessity for anything more. So I opened a second bank account at a different bank. I set up a standing order from my work payroll straight into that account, and the money just went there every month. Something I never needed, I never felt, I never saw. Fast forward 2 years later, I said, oh, this is quite a lot. When did that happen? I did not even know I was saving that much. So it makes sense. If you put principles in place that actually flush the money away before it ever touches the account, it really develops that habit and pattern, and it really builds the nest egg that you're looking for.
Such a great example, and I think I could mirror that to when you find that $100 in your pants pocket. Like you're like, oh my God, this is new money.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't need it, but at the same time, it's like, when you actually find it, you can find use for it, which is unfortunately how consumerism works. But that's such great advice, Kathleen. Thank you so much for that. I just want to shout out the folks in the comments. We have Arlette, who is saying thank you for sharing your insight today. We have Carla joining us from Tobago. Thank you so much, as well as Sila. She's joining us from Trinidad. Okay, so we have some questions, but we're gonna get to that in a bit. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to career because it took a while for us to get here as women, a couple of centuries, but we are in the professional space. We are balancing different things than the previous generations. So I want to direct this question to Racquel because she mentioned, shifting the mindset from, hey, I'm at this Microsoft office and I'm shifting over to the climate change conversation. Have you faced, this sort of conflict when it comes to family decisions and navigating the space in the professional world? Because a lot of times, mothers in general, just by the role, has to be a lot of sacrifice. But when it comes to making a decision around motherhood, have you been faced with a situation where career or opportunity, you kind of have to be like, this is not for me?
For sure. And that conflict never ends. I am today in a situation where my job requires a lot of travel. I have a young child. I don't want to travel very much. And every time I have to make a decision about a trip, I sit and I think, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decision for the right reason? I want to be home. She's growing up so quickly. I don't want to miss anything. But by the same token, is this a trip that I have to take? And that if I'm being true to the role, that I should do it. And I yesterday had to take a decision about a trip that I love the work, but I don't want to be away from my family. But I have to go. And so at some point I had to say, well, listen, if I'm not willing to do the travel, then maybe I'm in the wrong job. And I don't think I'm in the wrong job. And while I'm being far more strategic about travel, I wish to do it less. So it is that push and pull all the time of wanting to do what's right for your family, but also wanting to do what's right for your career. And what has helped me and been my guiding light through that process is, what would I want my daughter in my situation to do? And oftentimes that helps me take the right decision. So if it is to take a girls' trip with some friends, and I'm like, oh no, I want to stay home with her, or I want to go on a girls' trip with some friends. If it were my daughter, I want her to see me having a good time, because when she's my age, I want her to have a good time. So it's about, making those kinds of decisions, and also having a really strong partner. And if you don't have a really strong partner, my husband is able to do everything, and that was a journey, but he's able to do everything. He can comb hair, cook food, take care of her while I'm gone. And it's about making sure that you are choosing to have children with somebody like that. And if you've already had the children and you haven't picked somebody like that, then empowering them to make the mistakes that they need to make so that you are free to pursue your career.
Thank you so much, Racquel. We have quite a few questions in the comments, but we're going to get back to that. We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll make sure to respond to your comments. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from YouTube, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and in honor of Mother's Day, today we're discussing motherhood and money. We're joined by Tonni, Racquel, and Kathleen. We're going to bring them back in because we have questions in the comments, so we want to just answer them. But before we do, I want to ask a quick question to Tonni about uh, she mentioned earlier, if you missed anything at the beginning, that's okay. Once this live is completed, you could go on the replay on across the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and you could check out the conversation. So she mentioned that she has two children, and they are 4 and 6, right, Tonni? Are you with
That
me?
is correct.
Okay, great. So, at any point in time of your career, have you had to choose between part-time, full-time? And do you think that having kids affected your potential earning in the professional world?
Yes, and yes. And I'll get into detail on this. I think to Raquel's point, who you choose to have children with is important. And again, to Kathleen's point, dual or single income, your budgeting is your budgeting. But in parenting, the village is real. You need a village. And when I had my children, luckily I work for a feminist institution. First, we had 6 months maternity leave, and we also offer father's leave. We also had an opportunity to sit down and think through with my bosses what kind of work day would be most relevant at the time when I come back to work and what kind of breaks would I need. And as a result of that, I was able to have telecommuting into my workday way before we needed to do it for COVID 19. So by the time COVID 19 came, our office was able to continue to work effectively because this was a modality we had already adopted. So it wasn't so much part time, but it was a different way of working full time. Then when it comes to affecting my income, because of the workplace I'm in, it didn't necessarily affect my income negatively, but I can see how it can, especially if you don't have a village to support with childcare. And this is something we work at UN Women, is supporting governments to better understand subsidized childcare, quality childcare, and why it's needed. I have an incredible mother, friends, and spouse who really take up the slack and it's not taking up slack because we've made these children together. These children are going to be contributing to the society, who contribute to these children's lives equally. And because of my becoming a mother, and when I was single, I used to get annoyed and offended at times when people said, well, as a mother, I'm not annoyed or offended, and I don't think single people should be. It does shift your perspective about time and priorities. And I love my work. I have to travel a lot. And I think I have become more effective with my time at work, which has made me go up for more promotions that I had in the past because I'm a mother and I had to prioritize my time in a very different kind of way. So for me, at least, I've become much more effective and I've had an enabling environment in which that has led to increased promotions. But that is not the reality for most women.
Thank you so much for that. I also recall while I was living in the UK, I got a job for a year because the person went on maternity leave. Because in the
Right.
UK, it's a full year, which is things that we could only, aspire to. But I also thank all my friends and everybody else out there making kids, because you contribute to my pension. Thank you. So I will help. I will be the village. All right. So we have Lindsay in the comments mentioning, I call it the wash income. I think Lindsay is referencing to, something we spoke about earlier with finding money in your jeans. So I love that terminology. We may use that in the future. I think we have a question here from Vanessa for Kathleen, asking about the 50-30 rule, if it applies to gross or net income. You want to take that, Kathleen?
Net income. You can't count your tax. That's going to be pulled out regardless. So apply it on what you're taking home, and it'll give you a better way of budgeting yourself.
Thank you so much for that, Kathleen. So the name of the receipt app, they also want to find out what that is, and it's Simply Wise, guys. The app is called Simply Wise, correct, Kathleen?
Correct. But if you actually Google financial planning applications, you get about 100 of them come. So don't worry about the name of that one in particular. There are thousands available. So just go online. It's amazing what the Googler can give you.
Yes, I know. It's the internet is more than social media and TikTok videos, guys. It's truly amazing. All right. So let's talk about this conversation around household responsibilities. Because let's be honest, it was assigned to women, at the beginning of time. And when it comes to sharing responsibilities, and, it was mentioned by Racquel before, choosing a partner. But the reality is, sometimes, I don't want to say mistakes, but we make decisions that may not necessarily help us for the future. So, any advice for men out there who have to manage childcare and household responsibilities while pursuing their professional advancement?
I can jump. Well, yeah, Kathleen, you haven't spoken. You go ahead. I'll come after.
Okay, so for me, I remember my grandmother telling me a story. When she was about to give birth, she went to the nursing home with a midwife. And after the baby was born, they called her husband to tell her, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. When I was growing up, my mother religiously took all 5 of us to every single extracurricular, dropped one and swimming, went to ballet with the next one, football with the next one, while my father was at work. And today, my kids' primary school, we have something called the St. Andrew's Dads, and they do $1 a day once a term. It's 10 o'clock in the morning to come and sell pizza and chicken tenders and brownies and cookies. There are about 80 dads that come with the St. Andrew's polo on over their shirt and tie and are very visible and present. You go to an extracurricular, and I'm not just talking about the boys are doing football and cricket, so the dad is with them. My daughter would have done netball and cheerleading in St. Joseph's Convent. My husband was very present, and so were most of the other fathers. So the role of both women and men have quite evolved over the centuries. And if we are both vested in being breadwinners and contributing to the livelihoods that we have, then we're also both vested in being caregivers. So, like your other panelists, I've had the privilege of having an amazing husband and a huge village. And every opportunity, every decision, everything that came up in our lives, we sat down and had a very open conversation. And it's not a one and done. Marriage is easy. It's real easy to coexist with somebody. Bringing children into the mix changes the dynamics of what you do, what you can do, who you need to think of. And we would literally sit down and say, okay, if I take this role, it means I'm going to be outside of town. Can you handle the picking up of the kids? Well, I can do 3 of the days, I can't do the other 2. And I created a little village. There are at least 6 people outside of my mom and my sister who, if ever I'm in a jam and I call, they both come to my help. They've been my kids' friends that we have bonded with over the years. At the drop of a ball, I can pick up the phone and call any of them, and I know they'll be there. So Trinidad culture, everybody has a auntie, everybody has a mother, everybody has somebody that they can lean on. We need to remove the embarrassment of asking for help because we're all spinning out of control. Life is moving so fast. We need to support each other. And the same way I could call 6 of them, none of them would hesitate to call me if they needed help as well. So it's just about creating that village, creating space, sharing the minding of the home and the kids, sharing the contributing financially. It's just about a more balanced approach. And maybe that's
Yeah.
why we only have two kids, because parents want to be more involved. We don't, you
Mhm.
go, your child wants to do extracurricular, your whole family sitting down and present for every weekend that you're playing tennis, you're playing football, you're playing cricket. So it's about keeping your family size at small enough that it's manageable for the two of you. It's about balancing each other's workload. My husband's job is a little more flexible than mine, so the earlier pickups he does, the 3 days where my son stays late, I do, and we find our way.
Yeah, and I would just like to add TikTok has also contributed to Rich Aunties. So, the village has grown. It's something to aspire to. Tony, you wanted to add to that as well?
I look, Kathleen is amazing. I'm really glad to be able to to be able to be on this panel with these amazing women, both Kathleen and Raquel. So she said a lot of the same thing. And I think it goes to a realization when you get married to do some internal work about what it is you understand about marriage and what you think your role is supposed to be in the marriage and what you think a woman is supposed to be and do. And when you realize I cannot necessarily do it all, and why should I be doing it all? Who can I help? Who can help me? And who can also I help? And I think delegation as well, if you have some extra disposable income, thinking about housekeepers or catering, calling a caterer once or twice a week if both you and your husband can't do it, getting someone to help you with cleaning the house on the chores. If you have that disposable income, finding a way to delegate so that you aren't responsible for every single thing, especially if you don't have a partner, a spouse. It may mean you may not get to play with a particular carnival band one year because you're putting additional money aside to this, but delegation and ensuring that if you have to pay at one point for that delegation is really critical for your sanity and your ability to be effective in your workplace and present for your children and partner.
So
Pauline,
interesting. Yes,
oh, sorry, I just wanted to jump in really quickly. I
that's
think
okay.
the three of us are in an ideal scenario, right? It's, we have responsible partners, we have great jobs, we have disposable incomes, and that's not the reality for everybody. But I think the things that you can control, for example, my husband would be like, "Oh, our daughter's sick. What are you going to do about her staying home?" And I was like, "What are you going to do, my love?" Because it is every child, even when you talk about delegation, delegation assumes it's my responsibility. It isn't. She has two beautiful parents, and so we are equally responsible for taking decisions about what happens when she's sick, who stays home, what happens if she needs to be picked up, who's responsible for doing certain things. And I think women have to stop thinking about it as, well, this is my responsibility and somebody's going to help me. No, this is our responsibility and someone will help us, because I agree 100%, it is the village. And there are times when you can't afford the support that you require, or the budget just, the ends don't meet. And when those things happen, you have to think about what is the shortest path between where I am and where I need to be. I had to take decisions as a young single mother about whether I pursued school to the expense of time with my child, or whether I just stayed home and stayed in the situation I was in. I was like, well, listen, the time's going to pass anyway. I might as well go to school, and that will give me the ability to earn more. That then helps me to be able to take care of her. Likewise, if you don't have money to hire somebody to help you, you can always match up with somebody else who's a parent who's in a similar situation and say, listen, I'll pick up on Tuesdays, you pick up on Thursdays. Let's see how we can help each other because we're in a bind and we can't afford support.
Great point, Raquel. And I think there's also some societal pressure where
Yeah.
I remember seeing an interview once where a pregnant woman said, because it was her second kid, and she said, society always makes room for her when she's pregnant, but when she has the kid, they disappear.
Hmm.
And it's an interesting prospect because people say things on online. This is not me, guys. This is not me. They're like, oh, you choose to have the kid, which it's a really sad outlook to have because I think, oh my gosh, look this tiny human, So it's also a shift on our part, the folks who are looking from the outside to see if we can help, see offer help because a lot of times my friends, when I offer them assistance, they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "No, I'm serious. I would be happy to do it. I love to have conversations with children. They bring up different perspective, and no one could understand but them." So it's quite an amazing conversation we're having today. We have some questions, one actually directed at Tonni about the UN, so we hope that she can answer it.
I'll
We
try.
will go on a break and we will be right back. And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content and help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and in honor of Mother's Day, we're discussing motherhood and money. We're joined by Tonni, Racquel, and Kathleen, and we've had a robust conversation thus far. So if you missed it, that's okay. Once this live is ended, you can check on the replay across the multiple social media platforms. So before the break, we were mentioning the fact that we have some questions in the comments, and one is directed to Tonni. And the question is, are there any moves being made to lobby for policies to be put in place more in Caribbean countries for paternal leave to be standard with benefits? Is that something that you could
Absolutely.
answer?
Absolutely. Yes. So, what we do at UN Women, we're called UN Women because the General Assembly gave us that name, but we're the entity for gender equality and women's empowerment. And our work specifically on economic empowerment includes work on social protection, which sounds big, but when we look at the different forms of social protection, subsidized childcare, which is something I referenced earlier, is key, especially for those mothers who are don't have the means at the time. It's not a hand out, it's a hand up for them. And maternity and paternity leave. Now, we have a ways to go before we're in England with the 1 year, and a lot of our private sector organizations, which are small, may not be able to support that if it is a 1 year leave, right? But we can do better with both maternal and paternity leave. The issue in the Caribbean, and one prime minister raised this, and it was an interesting challenge, is that because we don't always have married parents, how can you ensure that paternity leave is used in a way that the father is bonding with the child, even if he's not with the mother? And we've been discussing with some of the governments how we can look into that. So you'll see soon there's some draft bills that are going forward in some Caribbean countries now as we speak on that. We've been supported by the government of Canada on a project called Build Back Equal, and this is one of the key outputs of that project.
Wow, thanks for that. That's such an interesting perspective. Yeah. What someone's doing with their time once they get that opportunity of paternity leave is quite an interesting perspective. So thanks a lot for that question. I want to shift the conversation a bit to financial decisions that, you know, looking back at what has happened over the years, because, this panel have been mothers for quite some time. Are there any financial decisions that you've made, and knowing what you know about motherhood and your career now, you look back and you're like, I shouldn't have. Would you have made anything differently? I want to start with Racquel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh Lord, if I had a dollar for every decision I got wrong, I'd be sitting on a pile of money. I think the thing is that, and it's so funny having an older daughter and her getting to realize that as you parent, you're figuring it out. You're doing the best that you can with the information that you have. But I did have a huge custody fight for that very same daughter. And I was lucky that I had put away quite a bit of money to be able to get through that custody battle. And what that taught me more than anything else is that you need to have something to fall back on. So think long and hard about the sacrifices you need to make to ensure that the things that you hold most dear, your ability to be a mother, your ability to parent, uh, whatever it is, the ability to support your parents, whatever that thing is that you hold most dear, that you create a space for yourself to have that. So maybe I would have bought less clothes. Maybe I would have, to be honest, managed my weight better so that I fit into my clothes all the time. I didn't have to buy new clothes. And sometimes it's simple things. What I what I remember most about my childhood is the quality time that I spent with my parents and caregivers. And a lot of the other things that we as parents spend a lot of effort on, we don't remember. It doesn't create a permanent memory. So I think when we're prioritizing what do we spend time and money on, think about the things that are going to create the memories. It's the song in the kitchen, not necessarily the very expensive toy when the child decides to play with the box. So I'd say, be more strategic about the decisions that you make and think about the longer term horizon of the decisions that you take. But also don't do that to the exclusion of fun in the moment, right? Because there are times when you can go too far to the left or too far to the right and you're not having any fun because you're so focused on saving money. But I love the 50-30-20 rule and automating that as much as possible. Don't wait till the end of the month. Pay yourself first, put that money away so you don't even see it, you don't even miss it. And then that helps you to create something that you can fall back on when times are tough.
Thank you. And I just want you to know I haven't had a child and I'm still trying to manage my weight. So it never ends. It never ends. Okay. Never ends. Alrighty. So, there's so much hours in a day. And I can imagine it's a bit of some people experience guilt, some people not sure if they should go and do something for themselves. So any advice on people well, mothers out there who trying to find the balance between finding some time for themselves because there's the self-care Sunday scenario on social media and saving for your own future. So it's just like there's just always this push and pull with, okay, I'm living in the present, but also I need to plan for the future. And I imagine it's way more difficult for mothers. So, any advice for mothers out there?
I can I can start. Look, even the 50-30-20 rule, I did not know that properly until quite late. And it's just because of the way in which my family understood financial management. I think mothers and women generally need to, one, educate themselves about finances. What are ways in which you can make your money grow beyond a savings account, beyond just buying a piece of land? I shouldn't say just, but buying a land and house, it's a great investment, but there are other ways in which your money can work for you. And I think that it's important for you to understand what it is you need to be the best version of yourself, not what social media is telling you, not what anybody else is saying you need. And does it have to cost money? Sometimes it will, and other times it won't. And so, really being honest with yourself, taking a moment to reflect on what do I need to be the best me for my children, for my partner, for my mother, my sisters, my siblings, that is key. And once you figure that out, you can do your self care. And it may just be time to yourself, right? That may just be time to yourself. Um, yeah, that's my thought on it. Because even, even when you get the clothes and you go to the spa, you're still yourself at the end of the day, right? So are you comfortable with maybe just 30 minutes of doom scrolling that month by yourself in a room where nobody's calling you or asking you for anything, 30 minutes to an hour? And that will allow you to get interest in a specific account that will let you and your family take the kind of vacation you really want to take in another year. I think that's really important. Thinking through what you want and what really matters for you to be the best version of yourself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a spa day or new clothes or anything like that.
Yeah, that 15 minutes scrolling is a treat. So
Listen,
whatever we could take. That I completely understand. Just want to shout out to Janine. Response. This was a response to the UN conversation. Much appreciated, and kind of would be of great help. So, thanks again for everybody in the comments. If you have any questions, not to worry, we have about 20 more minutes. So head over to the comments and let us know. I want to direct the next question at Kathleen because I want to talk about unexpected expenses. And I think we all have had some experience where that is concerned. And Racquel mentioned having to fight for a daughter. But when it comes to an emergency fund, do you have any advice on how moms could aim to save and maybe find some creative ways? Because we also are in a technological age, right? So people have a side hustle here and there. So give us some advice, Kathleen, on how we could manage that.
So, okay, well, I'm not going to go back through budgeting and automating your savings. You wanted some creativity. You have a driver on Savannah on January 2nd, and you see all of a sudden 1,000 Trinidadians who are now on a carb challenge, no carbs to get their bodies ready for carnival. We need to start doing some fun things like that with our finances. Create a financial challenge. So this year for Christmas, I gave both of my kids an album. It had 356 pockets in it, and each day you would save $1, $2, all the way up to 365. But the basis of it for me was we underestimate. You buy something, you throw the $3 into your handbag. We underestimate how quickly that adds up. So create some challenges for yourself. For 3 months, the next 3 months, I'm not going to buy any once. I'm going to put that aside because really we want to take that big vacation next year. I'm going to save $5 every day. Or I'm going to wake up early in the morning and make extra or cook extra for dinner and bring food with me to work every day, just so I don't have to spend the $50 or $35 buying lunch. And the money that I save from that, I'm going to put it aside to do something else with. So that's a big thing. In more advanced countries, first world countries, they actually have the apps right now in your banking platform where you can round up every purchase. And same principle, the 42 cents extra of each purchase, if you just sweep it into a savings account, it adds up and you don't feel the impact on your day-to-day life. So those are just some little hacks and tricks that I think would make it a little interesting. Everybody wants to compete with themselves. You tick your box, you develop this money. I told you all earlier that I would have forgotten about that account in 2 years, looked at it. Well, I'd accumulated so much without even knowing I was accumulating it. When I looked at it, I said, wow, okay, what can I do with this money? Because the objective is not to have a pile of cash, but how do you make your cash work for you? Do you leave it in a current account where most of the banks, other than ANSA Bank, shameless plug, I apologize for that, other than ANSA Bank, where they pay no interest on the current account? No, that doesn't make sense to you. Find a high interest yielding account, place your money there, let it accumulate to be enough, and start building your assets. Put it as a down payment at home. Buy equities where you get a dividend return every year. So it's about educating yourself, doing those online free courses, reading a financial book, reaching out to financial planners. There are many free available resources around. But just speaking to friends that have accumulated that asset base, just trying to understand what you could do better to put aside money without hurting your lifestyle, without feeling the impact of it overnight. And when you start to build the rhythm and accumulate the cash, don't leave it sitting in a bank. Do something meaningful with it and let it do something for you.
Such great insight. Thank you so much for that. The idea of saving for me growing up was always like, put it in the savings accounts. But now that I've gotten older and understood what the word stock means, is like, oh, wait, you can actually have your money work for you. And I think that's something the next generation is going to be much better at, especially technology. But being able to have these conversations are so important. And thank you so much for
can I
sharing
just
that,
say
Kathleen.
something
Sure.
quickly? What Kathleen just said so effortlessly is something that I went through a bachelor's degree, CXC A levels, and a master's degree before I figured it out. And we have to make sure that this financial education is in the school system. My husband is Jamaican, and I remember when I went to Jamaica and I heard my colleagues talking about CDs and investment accounts. I was shocked and I didn't understand what was happening, but they have a very different approach to entrepreneurship and POB and POA. It's not like if you're bright, you only should be doing medicine and the science subject and the law subject. We have to make sure that this education is integral across all of our schools because you shouldn't be postgraduate level and not understand it's not just putting it in a saving account.
Tony, I have to give the banks credit, right? I know FCB's done a lot of work with schools. I know RBC has a young leaders program targeted at a Form 4 level. We have the stock exchange and unit trust that sponsor the stockbrokers market game. It's a virtual secondary school game that teaches kids how to invest. So the banks through BAT as well have been doing quite a lot at getting that financial literacy into the schools until the Ministry of Education starts building it into the curriculum. But we all have an obligation. So the first time I ever budgeted was when I went to university. My mother handed me the money to deposit in my account, and I was very fortunate and privileged to be able to afford university and not have to take a loan for myself and that kind of thing. But the first time I went up there, she handed me enough money for the term. She worked it out like a science. So $100 for rent, $50 for groceries, $25 for gas, whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to give you disposable auxiliary spend of $150. And that first term, I blew through the money 6 weeks before I needed to come home. When I called her, she said, "You're going to need a job. There's no more to give you. We worked out the budget and you need to balance and manage yourself." So I want to suggest you get on campus because I couldn't work outside of campus. Find a meaningful job and get the money. Otherwise, you have nowhere to sleep and nothing to eat until you come home. And she was right. We need to build it into our homes. We need to do more. And I just want to say that BAT needs to continue this trend, right? We all have an obligation to continue to educate the population. And only through that financial literacy will we get people to become more savvy, more self-sufficient. And it's contagious, right?
Yes, thank you so much for mentioning because we've been doing this show actually for about 2, 3 years. And for those who are just joining us today, we're going to put in the comments. You could sign up to be notified for the next live show because, as you can see, this content is relevant to all of us. We're going to go on one last break, but before we do, I want to just preempt the conversation that we're gonna answer a quick question for everybody at the end. But I want everyone on the panel to think about the one thing that you want the person to take away from this conversation as it relates to motherhood and finances. So think about it, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm just going to bring in our guests today because we don't have much time and the quality of this content is stellar, guys. If you missed it, the live will end in about 10 minutes and you could check it on the replay. You could also head over to the comment section. It's either there or there, depending on where you're watching this. And you could sign up to be notified for the next live show. So before the break, I asked a question. I'm just going to repeat it. So I just want to find out, what's the key takeaway from the discussion we've had? What would you like our audience to take away from this as it relates to motherhood and finances? So I would start with Racquel.
Hi, I think if is anything that I want you to take away from this conversation is three really super quick things. You need to think about ways to increase your income, ways to decrease your expenses, and understand that the financial literacy of your children is your responsibility. Ways to increase your income, yes, you can get a side hustle, but I think far too many women don't go after promotions or don't go after bigger positions because they feel like they can't because they are mothers. You are a mother, you will figure it out. Go after the job, go after the promotion, go after the position. You will figure it out on the back end. The second thing, how to decrease your expenses. You're going to have to take a naked look at your expenses. Where are you spending your money? And I think a lot of people hide behind, like, I don't want to know. Use the apps, figure out where you're spending your money. And if it's coffee at Starbucks, buy less. If it is KFC 3 times a week, maybe go down to 2. But figure out ways that you can decrease your expenses and that way allowing you to put aside more money. And then finally, and I think Kathleen provided such an excellent example, the financial literacy of your children. Yes, the government should do more. Yes, BAT is doing incredible work. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility, and we have to teach them as early as possible.
Thank you so much for that, Racquel. Tonya, we want to go to you.
Sure. So 3 things. There are things you can do at the individual level, and Racquel has outlined those very clearly. There are also things that you need to ensure you are a part of in the way in which your company, if you're part of a broader organization, or even your government is functioning to support mothers. That is the talking to your MP about maternity leave and paternity leave, about subsidized childcare, about standards for childcare, and also ensuring that you are part of the village that you have said you are, Paula, that is there. Yes, having children is a choice, but that doesn't mean you should be alone in the choice because we are community. So how can we better support parents along this path?
Agreed, agreed. Kathleen, you want to add to that?
I'm going to change what I was going to say based on what Tonni just said. When Ethan joined Fatima, that's my youngest, the Fatima football team, the intercol side, won the North Zone and made it to the finals. Without any prompting, any conversation, the school would have arranged about 16 or 18 complimentary buses, let all the kids leave early, and rallied these young boys to go out and support. And I sat back. I'm a nerd. I actually wrote a letter to the principal, right? Because for me, it was profound. Our men are raised in a world where they rally around each other, they support each other. Sat in interviews where the managing directors from NAPS and the boy in front of us is from NAPS, and they immediately connect. They are built in a society where they strive on with each other, right? And that's why the past people's associations are so robust. Women, on the other hand, we still have in the back of our mind that there are limited amount of seats around the table. So we have innately taught each other to fight for those seats instead of really rallying around each other. And I don't think it's a government thing alone. I don't think it's for mothers alone. I think for women as a whole. We need to start cheerleading each other on. We need to start promoting and encouraging. We need to stop judging. I know housewives who feel guilt-ridden because they don't contribute to the finances and their husband's business is doing bad. I know working mothers who go home and cry because they had to miss their child's sports day because they had a meeting that they couldn't get out of. We need to release the guilt. We need to release the judgment. We need to release the snickering, the shoo-shoos around us, and just be. It's about choices. There's no right, there's no wrong. Free yourself from the judgment, and demand that as women we rally around each other. For me, I just want to give one piece of advice. You need to visualize what your financial freedom is, because it's different for each of us. What motivates us is different. Needs are different. Demands are different. And to visualize it, I'm going to look quite young when I say this, but actually do the visual board. Put the pictures of what that freedom looks like. It helps you prioritize what you need to do by when to achieve it. And cheerlead yourself on. tick it as you accomplish each one. For each new thing you do, you're going to find something else you want to do. And it will continue to evolve, but visualize it, taste it, feel it, put it in your hands so that it's something that you could run after. So that is my number one piece of advice. And the other thing, and this is really for a few generations below, for my kids' generation, do not get tempted to live FOMO. We're living in a very social media driven world, and it's very easy to see what everyone else has. We need to start practicing simple gratitude and focus on what we have, not what we don't. And just that shift in mindset makes your list of wants shrink over and over and over. And it provides bandwidth as your children's lives evolve. They're going to need more, and you'll realize the rest of it is just not important.
Well, thank you so much for that, Kathleen. I think that was a great way for us to close this conversation. We do have an additional 2 minutes, and I have this question that I want to ask each one of you. It just has a simple response. It's going to take you all the way back. But do you remember the first time you encountered money? What age were you? And having to have that transactional experience. Do you remember? Is
Yes.
this too hard a question? Yes.
No.
Okay. No.
No. So I worked every summer from the time I was 13 years old. And I got a travel stipend. It was $100 a month. Really, what do you do with $100? Absolutely nothing. And I used to see my friends all partying, liming, going from house to house. And my dad said, well, I have nothing to give you unless you work. So you want to turn up your nose at their $100, but you actually owe them $2,000 for teaching you this. So it was a very clear lesson. I would have played carnival at 16 years old. Again, Dad said, you could do what you want, but I am not wasting my money on a costume. So I worked all summer, worked in the mall, wrapping gifts all Christmas just to buy the costume. Unfortunately, for people today, costumes got a little expensive. In my days, it was a little cheaper. But it was very, we came from means, Pauline, but my parents always ensured we got everything we needed and we worked hard for what we wanted, right? You want something new? Okay, work for it. Work for it. You contribute and then I'll contribute, but I'm not just going to hand it to you. So I think those are some good things.
Okay. Thanks for that transparency. Racquel, do you remember your first time?
Yeah, it was probably some 45, 46 years ago when I got money to go across the street and buy stuff from the parlor, right? And it's just about just making sure that you understand, that your children understand the value of money. I love that, we give our daughter money for Tuck Shop and she earns money for doing different things, but she's also responsible for how she spends the money. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're that age, you think money is unlimited. And I remember my first job though, where I was making like $4.65 in the US, $4.65 US an hour. And then there was a promotion available, and I was like, "Ooh, when I'm making that $5.25 an hour, I'm gonna be rich." And then you realize when you get the money, it makes little or no difference. So it's just about understanding that every increment provides you with different context, and you really need to just put away the money and know that you keep striving to do more, to get to a higher level, to increase your financial security till you're in a place where you're comfortable. But I 100% agree with Kathleen on gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. You will attract so much more with gratitude.
Okay. And just to quickly close it off, Tanya, what's your first memory?
So I'm trying, but I think one of the things is I wanted to go to Disneyland when I was about 5 or 6. And my mother said, well, you'll have to earn it. And she said, look, I don't know if you all remember Auntie Hazel. Auntie Hazel has a show. So go forth. And so I went forth and I came third. And I thought that she was going to reward me for the effort. And she was like, no, you didn't get the money. And so, but she was very appreciative of the effort that I made, and she gave me a lot of kudos for the effort, not just the outcome. And it was a lesson in ensuring that you work hard, but the terms in which you enter a contract need to be favorable for you when it comes to money. Because I should have gotten at least something for coming third.
I love that. I think that's a fantastic way to close off, because I'm just like, for all the 5-year-olds out there, when your parents tell you something, get it in writing, okay? Well, thank you so much for Tonni, Racquel, and Kathleen for joining us today and sharing insight into motherhood and money. I believe we have a link in the comments for an event for Caribbean UN women. So just check it out in the comment section for Gender Equality Forum 2024. And don't forget to also sign up to be notified for our next live show, where we'll be discussing compliance in Trinidad and Tobago via the link in the comments. So you have a lot of actions to do besides saving money. You have to sign up for the live show. You have to attend the Gender Equality UN event, and you just, enjoy life somewhere in between there. So as always, be sure to like and follow our page so you don't miss a single live show across social media. And thanks again for joining us. And happy Mother's Day, everyone. And if you are on a budget, maybe make a macaroni. It's about the thought, okay? Tell them you love them. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.